Very shortly after the huge success that was Godzilla 2014 at the box office, naturally a sequel was to be announced. What's crazy is it's like 2 days later after it came out. But this sequel would not only feature Mothra, but Rodan and the King Ghidorah. Originally, Gareth Edwards was slated to return for the project, but due to creative differences and scheduling conflicts, it wound up falling through and we got Michael Dougherty instead. 5 years later, we finally got to see the sequel brought to life. Godzilla King of the Monsters is the third project in the MonsterVerse and the second of 4 of Legendary's films that star the titular King himself. As I've mentioned in the past, my opinions regarding both Legendary Godzilla movies have drastically changed over the years. So considering I look back at Godzilla 2014 far more positively now, not as positive as the first time I saw it, but much more than, the period which I hated it. So how does this one hold up? Considering, I own a steelbook of it. You look back at Michael Dougherty's Godzilla King of the Monsters and see if the exact same thing happened with Godzilla 2014, or if maybe my opinions slightly differ. Welcome back to MonsterVerse Madness. Y'all know the drill with these plot summaries, broad strokes, I would say to the point, but I won't even hold you. This plot summary goes on like 10 pages. So much stuff happens in this movie. The film opens during the final events of Godzilla 2014, actually, is in the sky. You can see the halo jump. We are then introduced to the Russell family, Mark, Emma, and a younger Madison as they look for their lost son/brother Andrew, who is nowhere to be found. We hear the iconic footsteps and sound effects, and as the camera pans up, we see the big G in all his glory. 2014 Godzilla towers over them as they look up in terror. We get a really cool cutaway as Emma takes a look at Godzilla, jumping 5 years into the future with a very similar facial expression. We then see on the news some parallels to Kong Skull Island as people are actually protesting the Titan's existence, and basically the entire world wants all the monsters dead. We then learned something crazy, that Godzilla hasn't been around for 5 years. The last we saw of him was the end of 2014. And all these Titans running amok over the past few years has people questioning, should they be allowed to coexist with humans? And after watching the broadcast, Emma reveals a mysterious device to the audience, which we will later figure out the name of, revealing her ties to our favorite shady organization, Monarch. We then cut to an older Madison Russell, played by Millie Bobby Brown, as she sends out an email to her father mentioning that she is worried about her mother. She burns the bacon like an absolute rookie and then sits down with her mom to have some breakfast. She reveals to her mother that, Mark has been emailing her, but stating that he looked healthy, which signifies to the audience that, Mark hasn't really coped with the loss of Andrew in the healthiest way. After Emma reassures Madison of her father's safety, she states that she has now finished her mysterious device. Right then, the house begins to shake, the lights flicker, and then we hear the iconic roar of our Queen of the Monsters, Mothra. If you look out the window to reveal, they actually aren't in just a house in the middle of nowhere. They're living near a Monarch outpost. Emma brings Madison along to Mothra's containment unit, which, great parenting there. This Monarch scientist, Tim, lets Emma know that radiation levels have spiked, triggering Mothra's awakening. That's one of 2 Monarch employees named Tim now. The one from Legacy of Monsters absolutely sweeps, though. That's my Tim. That's my goat. Mothra awakens in her larval form, pulsing a beautiful bioluminescent blue as she turns to face those holding her captive. The containment protocols designed to keep Mothra in suspiciously begin to fail, suggesting that someone else must be at play here. Mothra gets absolutely pissed and begins to hit these guys with her silk, taking the first of just many questionable decisions and risks that Emma Russell decides to take. She brings out the mysterious device which we learn is called the Orca. It is designed to replicate an Alpha Titan frequency and allow communication with the Titans, which not a good thing for humans to have. Mothra isn't having it at all until they finally lock in the alpha frequency, which calms her down. Mothra has a touching How to Train Your Dragon moment with the Russells here, before randomly an explosion goes off and suddenly a bunch of soldiers burst through, just lighting up employees. That's the nicest way I can put it. From the smoke, our human antagonist of this film, Alan Jonah, appears, blowing the other Tim's brains out. I mean, Legacy of Monsters Tim supremacy, but did bro really deserve that? That's kind of harsh, man. He stares at the 2 menacingly, before shifting his eyes to the orca. We then cut away to Monarch having a hearing with the Senate, as we see some nicely reused clips from the previous two films. Monarch proposes that the Titan's existence is very complicated, not black and white at all, very much a gray area, as some are benevolent creatures that are here to do nothing but help and protect humanity, whilst others are of a destroyer nature. One of the senators isn't having it at all, and like an absolute Chad, Serizawa just calls out her bullshit. Serizawa and Graham stand on business, pushing for coexistence. After Serizawa completely fumbles the bag, trying to suggest that humanity would be Godzilla's pet. I don't know what he was thinking with that. Graham receives a text, which immediately gets the duo's attention, causing them to leave in the middle of the hearing, which, you know, really pisses off the senator. And then Coleman decides it's a great idea to play a documentary on Titan reproduction. I hate this guy with a burning passion. Oh my god. We arrive in Colorado as we see Mark taking pictures of these wolves just absolutely eviscerating a deer. Me when I get home from leg day. He kind of locks in listening to just the nature sounds, which, you know, is kind of weird considering, you know, there's wolves eating a deer right in front of you. That's psychopath behavior. Until he hears the sound of propellers over his little headphones, and the Monarch duo plus Coleman arrive. The Monarch crew lets Mark know that his ex-wife and daughter have been taken captive. Jonah and his eco-terrorist organization were after that little device, the Orca, which really pisses Mark off considering he thought that he and Emma had both destroyed the prototype. And then Mark scolds the crew, pointing out that, you know, this technology's misuse could really lead to some intense tragedy. After being convinced to tag along, Mark and Graham have a very rough conversation concerning his wife's estrangement and basically the falling apart of their family after the loss of their son Andrew. Basically admitting that he's an alcoholic now. Yeah. Ooh. The crew arrives at the Castle Bravo Monarch Outpost 54. Nice reference there, buddy. Which looks like an oil rig, but beneath the surface, oh yeah, that's badass. We see the decapitated head of the Fimuto in the background too. Literally like some Pacific Rim barracks type stuff. Graham reveals during a briefing that Alan Jonah's whole plan is to restore natural order using the Titans, as he has been collecting and selling Titan DNA this whole time. We then see my boy Noah Diaz. That actually blew my mind rewatching it, that was him. I was like, wow, that's Anthony Ramos. Video on Rise of the Beast will definitely be coming sometime this summer, probably the day of the 1 year anniversary, if I had to guess. We are then introduced to my least favorite character in the entire MonsterVerse, Dr. Rick Stanton, played by Bradley Whitford. Mark points out that, you know, something's up here. Mothra is more than likely just a diversion by Jonah to get Monarch to go after Mothra while they go for something bigger, more dangerous, an Alpha Titan. Mark pushes for the extermination of the Titans and calls out Godzilla specifically. Suddenly we find ourselves in Antarctica with Madison, Emma, Jonah, and his whole crew as they arrive to Outpost 32. The crew enters the outpost and enters this elevator as they begin their descent to meet the devil with 3 heads. They exit the elevator, finding themselves face to face with the one who is many, the devil with 3 heads, the King Ghidorah. Jonah's crew begins drilling into the ice, Emma priming the Orca as it begins to analyze Ghidorah's bioacoustics. We then see Mark watching a really wholesome family video before the tragedy of San Francisco. Suddenly though, everything begins to shake and the monitor begins to glitch out. Alarms begin to go off and Mark heads into the main HQ to find out what's going on. It's Godzilla, sporting a brand new, much superior design in my opinion. And he's right at their front door. Monarch prepares their cannons to fire at Godzilla, which, you know, I figured Monarch of all people would be smarter than that. Serizawa orders them to stand down like the absolute Chad that he is. They open the hangar window to let Godzilla know that they are not a threat and are greeted with one of the most intense, beautiful scenes in the entirety of the MonsterVerse, the Godzilla intimidation display. Godzilla's spines pulse a beautiful neon blue as the crew sits there going, please God, don't let him shoot his beam into us, like please. After jump scaring the entirety of Monarch and then swimming away, Mark makes a very good point that they should follow Godzilla, utilizing his knowledge of animal hunting and tracking patterns as he feels that Godzilla is threatened by something. All paths point to Antarctica, and Mark questions just what is Monarch hiding there. We cut to the USS Argo, aka the Super X-3 on steroids, flying towards Outpost 32. As aboard the ship, Graham and Serizawa give the lore rundown on the discovery of Ghidorah. Basically, he's his arch nemesis. But Monarch loses track of Godzilla as they approach the lair of the three-headed golden dragon. The team arrives and a firefight ensues within. Mark, like the Giga Chad he is, runs in by himself, suddenly finding himself face to face with his ex-wife and his daughter, and Jonah as well, begging Madison to come with him. The brain rot gets to Madison though, and Emma, in her infinite wisdom, frees Ghidorah. Delusion. As both opposing crews retreat from the collapsing outpost, Emma activates the Orca as everyone looks on in horror. Ghidorah rises from the ice, pissed as hell, mad as hell somebody woke him up from his beauty sleep, and looking directly at the Monarch crew. They hit Ghidorah with bullets, thinking that was going to do anything, before he decides, you know what, I'm gonna smite these fools, completely just evaporating them from existence with his gravity beams.
You should kill yourself.
This stupid idiot here, Kevin, just licks the ground. Madison messes with the Orca, trying to create a diversion, and this causes Ghidorah to tweak out and almost beam them out of the sky before Emma changes the signal back. Ghidorah locks back in for a moment, but then suddenly he stops. A blue light is in the distance. It's Godzilla, and the classic Godzilla theme. The classic Godzilla theme is played. The two rivals stand face to face, reunited after God knows how long. An ancient amount of time, that's for sure. As we get this absolutely iconic shot of them standing across from each other in the Arctic before they just beat the hell out of each other. Godzilla charges at Ghidorah, and this absolutely just insane first fight ensues, until Ghidorah knocks Goji into the very hole which he emerged from. Ghidorah, then eats Graham. They did her so dirty, man. I don't know why she did not deserve to go out like that. Like, that actually makes me mad. It seems that all hope is lost until the Argo swoops in, mildly annoying Ghidorah with some missiles while giving Godzilla the time to get up on his feet. It seems that Godzilla's about to get back into the fight, hitting another lick on Ghidorah before he decides, you know what, I'm gonna head out, flying away like a little punk. And then Mark just passes out. That's a terrible place to pass out. Oh my god. He awakens on the Argo to find that Monster Zero's readings have been lost. Oh, how the hell do they lose a big 500-foot tall dragon? How do you do that? After much internal debate amongst the crew, Mark drops the bomb that it was Emma to pull the trigger because, you know, that's what they were debating on, whether or not she did it. Foster then points out that there's been a consistent pattern here. Jonah is aiming for a mass reawakening of the Titans. Uh-oh. Realizing Godzilla is headed for Isla de Mara, Emma suddenly appears over video comms with Maddie as they talk to Monarch, trying her best to explain Jonah's plan, which is actually also partly her plan, and why it's a good idea. Emma then awakens Rodan from his slumber, which brings literally like one of my favorite scenes with Rodan ever across all pieces of media he's ever been in. Seriously, this scene of him awakening from the volcano and then flying over Isla de Mara, just wiping the city out by just flying over it, was impeccable. It was so well done. After chasing the Argo and these jets and eating this guy, Rodan decides, you know what, I'm feeling suicidal today, and flies straight at Ghidorah thinking, I'm gonna beat his ass. Before that though, we get a beautiful shot, and this was absolutely my favorite shot in the entire trailer when they first showed it, and probably one of my favorite shots in the entirety of the Godzilla franchise, period. Ghidorah emerging from the cloud and just staring at the Argo, just, oh my god, it's such a beautiful scene. And I gotta give Rodan some credit here. He had some balls here going against Ghidorah. Like, man, you have a flying hurricane, basically. A hurricane with wings and 3 heads flying at you, and you don't care. If only they didn't do him dirty in the rest of this movie. The moment which Ghidorah had Rodan spread out and hit him with the gravity beams was the moment that he stopped being him. Stenz orders Monarch to immediately disengage before revealing that the military has developed an oxygen destroyer prototype. A nice callback to the classic 1954 masterpiece. Serizawa very much is not a fan, and this Osprey barely gets onto the Argo in time before Ghidorah is seemingly about to just chomp onto the Argo. But Godzilla, like a Chad, leaps God knows how far out of the water because Ghidorah was flying very high in this scene, so Godzilla had to jump. But he timed it perfectly, jumped out of the water, snatches him, and brings him down under the water where he actually has the fighting advantage. And if it weren't for the Oxygen Destroyer and the military's sheer incompetence in this moment, Godzilla would have killed Ghidorah. Like, Ghidorah would have died right here in this fight. Not completely considering what we're about to learn, but, you know, he would have been incapacitated for a very long time. But of course, the Oxygen Destroyer detonates, and Ghidorah emerges from the water with a missing head. But Godzilla's vitals begin to fade, leading everyone to think that they just lost their best chance at killing Ghidorah. We then get... I don't know if it's my favorite shot, but I'm gonna say it's one of my favorites for sure. But one of my favorite shots in this entire movie, albeit a tad bit ham-fisted with the imagery and symbolism. But Ghidorah standing atop of the volcano as Kevin regenerates with the cross in the foreground as he does the alpha roar. Just, ooh, peak as hell, my boy, peak as hell. And shortly after, all the Titans awaken from their nappy time. Seriously though, that shot goes so hard. I can't wait to recreate that when I get the Hayek Ghidorah. Like, oh my goodness, that is going to be... that's going to go crazy. We then arrive at the Mothra cocoon site under this waterfall where we see our boy Dr. Brooks from Kong Skull Island, albeit much older. But it's very nice to see him return though. I'm glad that they've made a habit out of having younger and older versions of the same character, like with Lee Shaw and with Bill Randa. Mothra then proceeds to awaken in what is tied with the Rodan sequence for my favorite moment in this entire film. I may complain about the entire film being blue, but like in this part, I genuinely don't mind. And they play the Mothra theme, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost like Bear McCreary's Mothra theme more than I do the rest of this soundtrack, other than Godzilla's theme, obviously. Like, seriously, he did not have to go this hard with Mothra's theme. Oh my god. Madison finally realizes that her mother is a crazy-ass bitch, calling out her mom's BS. Dr. Chen then gives a quick lore drop to Mark. During this lore drop, Chen reveals Ghidorah is not of the Earth. He is an alien, just like he's supposed to be. An invasive species, a false king, and that he is capable of terraforming the planet to his liking. Emma finally realizes, she being the delusional one, but Jonas simply just doesn't care, and Madison devises a plan to lure Ghidorah to Boston, stealing the Orca. Mothra then arrives at the Castle Bravo outpost, flashbanging Mark with her god rays. Like, oh my god, I'm surprised dude can see after that. They then point out that Mothra is actually calling out to Godzilla, meaning that he's still alive. Monarch then devises a plan to not only lure Ghidorah away from Washington, but to give Godzilla a much-needed power-up by giving him a yummy nuke, which is a very much-needed power-up to fight Ghidorah after he almost died getting hit with the Oxygen Destroyer. The submarine descends into the ocean as Mark and Serizawa have a nice, touching little moment. Suddenly, the ship is sucked into a vortex, as we cut away to Maddie doing some little heisty shenanigans with the Orca. We then get a glimpse of Washington in yeah, Ghidorah a problem. Cutting back to the submersible, Stanton has a quick little yap sesh about he was right, and Chen is just me as hell in this scene, telling him to shut up. They deploy some probes as they find themselves within the ancient ruins of a lost civilization that once bowed to Godzilla, once again giving us some absolutely hard shots. After realizing that there's an air pocket near them, they basically find out they are the little roach that's chilling in the corner of Godzilla's room. Stanton then says quite possibly one of the worst lines in the entire Godzilla franchise. My god. Oh, brother! I can't believe this got past the cutting room floor. Like, I'm serious. After realizing that it may take years for Godzilla to restore his energy from the Oxygen Destroyer just draining him, and that their weapon systems are damaged beyond repair and they can't just shoot the nuke in there, Serizawa decides that he will be the sacrificial lamb to revive Godzilla. Back in Boston, Maddie finally activates the Orca to lure Ghidorah, and her mother begins to tweak out as she finally realizes the consequences of her actions. Serizawa actually ascends into Godzilla's lair as we see just another absolutely beautiful sequence of him walking in this big, huge cavernous, this temple which Godzilla rests in. Approaching with a nuke to revive Big Boy. Godzilla opens his eye, looking at Serizawa. The two have possibly the best How to Train Your Dragon moment of the ones that they've done. Just absolutely just one of the most touching scenes in this entire film as Serizawa pays his respects to Godzilla before the nukes detonate. Rest in peace, GOAT. Rest in peace. At least you didn't go out sad. I still may be upset that they killed you in the second Godzilla movie, but could have been worse. That's all I can say. You could have been a Joe Brody. After sinking to the surface, Mark and the crew look out at the ocean. Godzilla is back, emerging from the depths below. The classic theme blaring as his spines pulse a beautiful blue before shooting his heat ray into the sky, his call to arms. Godzilla then gets up close and personal with the crew, staring them down, before realizing that they pretty much are the reason that he's alive in the first place, so he turns around, swims away. Ghidorah arrives in Boston, shrouding the city in thick clouds and lightning, before landing literally right in front of Madison, like pretty much spot on. After taking a bite out of the speaker apparatus, yummy. Maddie is about to leave before she turns to see Ghidorah staring into her soul. She makes out of there like a helldiver before Ghidorah begins to spam his gravity beams, but winds up right underneath him. He's about to zap her out of existence before he's hit with atomic breath straight to the neck, or necks, I guess. Godzilla is absolutely beefed up here, just juiced up. Monarch walking in with him as his entourage, seeking all the smoke with Ghidorah, all of it. The final battle for the survival of both humanity and the Titans began as Godzilla and Ghidorah clash, their impact causing a shockwave. Stanton points out that Godzilla's a ticking time bomb. Basically fueled with way too much radiation, he has about 12 minutes before he goes thermonuclear. Mark screams for Madison as Godzilla and Ghidorah fight right over top of him. I'm not gonna lie, man, I don't know how you hear anything. And then they come across the damaged orca on the ground. Ghidorah lifts Goji up off the ground, slamming him hard as hell. But then Godzilla gets off a nice heat ray shot, pushing him very far back, like, oh my god. Keep in mind, before this movie, we had only seen legendary Godzilla use his atomic breath once. So to see it go from like kind of weak fire that just kind of mildly annoyed the Muto to literally pushing Ghidorah back is crazy. Right above Ghidorah, we see colorful lights as Mothra enters the fray, hitting the devil with three heads with that dollar store silk. Rodan, being an absolute goon, decides to team up with Ghidorah, making this a 2v2 fight instead of a 3v1. I like that, considering I'm pretty sure the Showa Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of the Astro Monster, I'm pretty sure all of those, it's a 3v1, so it's a nice switch up. He picks a fight with Mothra in the air as Emma pulls up in a Hummer to save the Monarch crew. Awkward! They drive down the streets of Boston as a 2v2 match is happening right above them. And then the divorced couple has an argument while they're driving, before Barnes calls them out, which also gives them a clue to find Maddie. Maddie enters her home as Mothra and Rodan are fighting like the neighborhood goons on her front lawn. And we cut back to Godzilla and Ghidorah beating the hell out of each other. Ghidorah notices a malfunctioning electrical, I think it's a transformer, I'm not sure. For once, I'm actually not talking about like the franchise Transformers. And bites down on it for a charge up, prepping a yummy lightning attack, knocking Godzilla back. Rodan pins Mothra to the top of this building, seemingly about to kill her, until she stabs Rodan through the shoulder with her stinger. Bro falls to the ground and is the first of the four to be out of commission for the battle. Brother went out sad. Mothra gets up, but clearly she's seen better days. Mark and Emma seemingly can't find their daughter until Mark notices her hand under some rubble, which fell on top of the bathtub she was hiding in. She's out cold at first, but then wakes up, all three coming in for a hug. Love to see a family coming together. It seems Godzilla is losing ground, and then Ghidorah picks him up, bringing him to, like, I think the stratosphere, if I'm not mistaken. It's like the stratosphere or like the atmosphere or something, and drops him all the way down. Actually, no, I lied. This right here, Ghidorah holding Godzilla in the air, this is my favorite shot in the entire movie. If I had to pick, this is my favorite shot. Ghidorah descends to the ground to finish the job, but he finds Mothra standing atop Godzilla, ready to do basically the only thing she does in any movie. She flies at Ghidorah, getting zapped to shreds, sacrificing herself for Godzilla. Mark and Emma then devise a plan to distract Ghidorah in order to give Godzilla enough time to get back up on his feet. We then see Mothra's dust that she just turned into be absorbed by Godzilla, and then we see Ghidorah drain the life out of Godzilla, which he hasn't done since Godzilla Final Wars with Kaiser Ghidorah. And this is apparently the runt of a much larger litter. Absolutely love that little lore detail. I believe it was in the novelization. I really wish they mentioned it in the movie, though. That would have made him 10 times more terrifying, knowing the fact that he is a baby, basically. Emma then decides to be the sacrificial lamb this time, deciding not to board the Osprey, but to instead distract Ghidorah. She gets into the Hummer with the Orca and drives away, luring Ghidorah further away from Godzilla. After absolutely beaming her whip, Ghidorah stands atop Emma, staring into her soul, about to smite her out of existence. Literally looking at her condescendingly almost. She then drops this absolutely cold line. I don't care what anyone says, this line's cold as hell.
Long live the king.
And we then hear the iconic charging sound as Ghidorah realizes just how screwed he really is. Emblazoned in fiery, hellish glory, burning Godzilla walks straight towards Ghidorah. And not only that, but melting not only Ghidorah, but everything around him in his immediate vicinity. He then stomps on Ghidorah's chest, which creates this huge explosion. The camera dollies through the rubble before seeing Ghidorah's head emerge from the rubble, but it's a fake out. Guess what? Godzilla has his head in his mouth. Godzilla then basically hits a reverse kiss of death, shooting the beam from his neck all the way through to his face. Many, but not all of the awoken titans come before Godzilla, including the Queen Muto, Scylla, Rodan, and my boy, Behemoth the Goat, as they all bow to Godzilla. Crazy that he let the Muto survive, considering his species is ops with her species, but I'll let it slide. Godzilla lets off a victorious Alpha roar, officially earning his title back as Alpha from the False King. And then in the after credits, it's revealed Jonah copped himself that limited edition Kevin head, setting up the inevitable arrival of our Mecha Godzilla in the next film. Movie over, let's review. Sorry if the shot composition has changed, is a little messed up, whatever. I got a FaceTime call in between the plot summary and this, so my bad. First and foremost, my biggest issue with this film was the inconsistency in the writing with the human characters. There's some stuff in here that's genuinely great, like I think with Mark and Sarah Zalba, I think they did a fantastic job, but like specifically with Coleman, Stanton, and Emma, I was not feeling them. I really wasn't. And Emma is just the biggest dumbass of all out of all four of these movies. Like, I get what they were going for. They were trying to go for a Walter White, ironic considering he was in the previous Godzilla movie. But yeah, like, just nothing about Emma is all that likable. Like, I'm sorry. She is definitely not redeemed in my eyes in any way. Yes, she dropped a cold line, but that's it. Coleman is just annoying and corny, and Stanton is the exact same thing times 100. And they are given far too much dialogue. Like, why? Millie Bobby Brown is Millie Bobby Brown in this. She does a fine enough job, but, you know, I think any other actor could have been in her role and could have done a better job, so. I don't hate Millie Bobby Brown. I think she's decent in Stranger Things, but, like, I wasn't feeling her in either of the MonsterVerse movies, to be honest. Like I said, with Stanton and Coleman, some of the supporting actors are just not it. Like, Ice Cube's son, he was hyping up the fact that he was in this movie, and, like, he was fine. And also, I forgot to mention, I really don't care for Alan Jonah as a human villain. His motivations are so stupid, I'm sorry. I get they're going the eco-terrorist route, that he wants to use the monsters to restore the Earth, but like his plan is so flawed. Like, I'm sorry, just, you know how bad of an idea it is to awaken this guy right here? Like, I'm sorry, it just, I don't know. And like I said, with these characters, some of their dialogue is just, I don't even know what they were thinking with the writing sometimes. Specifically, the "oh my god, Zilla" line made me ashamed to be a Godzilla fan for a few years, specifically just because of that line. Like, oh my god, I hate that line so much. Graham's death being so unceremonious, just getting chomped on by Ghidorah, I hate that, especially considering she was in the first movie, and I think all of us were under the impression that at least a Monarch scientist would make it to Godzilla vs. Kong. I don't know. She deserved better. She definitely deserved better. I also think using a nuke to wake up Godzilla is rather in poor taste. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it or anything, but it's like, you know, the original film was made in response to that. So, you know, I think him literally winning the final battle because of a nuke is, it just feels a little wrong, to be honest with you. I also feel that Burning Godzilla was used far too early in the MonsterVerse. Don't get me wrong, I think the moment that they did use him was fantastic. And I don't care what anyone says, like, there's merch of thermonuclear Godzilla. called a Burning Godzilla, and they have the exact same properties. It's Burning Godzilla. Rodan is also just like, at first he's really cool and like actually a badass, but after he gets bitched on by Ghidorah, he never recovers. I hope to God that he gets a redemption arc. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of the Mothra design. I love the wings. The wings are great. It's the body. To me, she looks more like a wasp than a moth. I get they had to make it to where she was realistically able to join the fight. I get it. But at the same time, like, y'all could have made her fuzzy. But that and Mothra's just not in the movie enough. She's in it for like 2 minutes. I'm also a little upset about Serizawa dying in this movie, but at least the death scene was good. I'll give them that. It was a good death scene. And then, oh my god, that cover of Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla song in the end by Serge Tankian is ass. Look, I love System of a Down just as much as the next guy, but Serge sounds like a dying horse on this song. I'm sorry, he sounds awful on this. Oh, and one more thing, I forgot if I mentioned it or not. The color grading. The entire movie is either blue, yellow, or like orangey brown. I get what they were going for, but it makes it look like an early 2010 movie, and I don't like that. It really sucks a lot of the life out of the visuals for me. Alright, that's all the complaining I have. Let's talk about what I like about the movie. The first thing that I just absolutely adore about this movie is the fight choreography, the action, the cinematography, the framing of the shots, just the visuals, just all 5 of those things I just listed are just top notch, dude. And that is despite the blue, yellow, orange color grading. Some of the moves that they have Godzilla pulling this, like him grabbing onto Ghidorah's neck and slamming it into the ice, is just like, dude, oh my god. All the monsters have their own distinct and unique personalities in this movie, and I absolutely love it. Godzilla's like just this pissed off dad that just has to protect the earth. Mothra probably has the least personality of the 4, but she does at least come across as, the classic benevolent, heroic titan. Rodan has this like almost cocky aura about him at first, and then once he gets absolutely bitched on by Ghidorah, his energy completely changes. And then Ghidorah has the exact same energy, except he is him. Ghidorah just has this cocky, condescending attitude to him that you can just tell by like looking at the facial expressions of the heads and the way that his body moves and everything. It literally feels like he's like, I'm too good to be here, which just makes the fights between all 4 of these monsters absolutely entertaining. Considering, they all have their own personal agendas and their own personalities, like I said. It takes it to another level. I love it. Aside from the god-awful cover of the Blue Oyster Cult song, the score in this is absolutely the best of the MonsterVerse and one of the best in the entire Godzilla franchise, in my opinion. I can't remember whose review I saw, but someone said that the soundtrack of the King of the Monsters was like America's half-hearted attempt at doing a Godzilla soundtrack. Dude, I'm sorry, shut up. You cannot deny that they nailed the Mothra theme. Like, I genuinely think that this is the best version of the Mothra theme we've ever gotten. I love it so much. Yeah, he absolutely went off for this, and I hope to God that he returns for the next movie. I know that Junkie XL was doing Godzilla X Kong, and he's okay, but I pray that Bear McCreary gets to do another Godzilla movie. He absolutely deserves it. The creature design in this movie is absolutely stellar, aside from, say, Mothra. Godzilla's design in this is, up until Evolved, in my opinion, the best design in the entire MonsterVerse. I love how just of an absolute beefcake he is. I love the shorter, more rounded off classic tail, the new feet, the beefed up arms, the slightly larger head. It looks larger to me. And the classic spines, just, oh my god, it looks so much better than 2014. I love 2014's design, but it smacks the hell out of it. And despite the inconsistencies in the writing, I gotta give the writing team credit. Where they did a good job, they did a fantastic job. Mark Russell is quite literally probably one of the best characters in this series. Like, he is actually got a lot of depth to him, and I completely forgot about it. It kills me that Kyle Chandler didn't get that much screen time in Godzilla vs. Kong, and probably won't be returning anytime soon, so, I do hope that they at least get him to return. If they can get him back and, ignore the rest, I honestly will take that. Ken Watanabe absolutely gets to shine as Serizawa in this film, which makes his death, far more palatable. And yeah, his sacrifice, even though I hate how early he died, is beautiful. I remember, I can't say for certain, but I guarantee when I first watched that movie, that scene probably made me at least shed a tear. This movie also has some of the best scenes in the entire MonsterVerse, let alone the entire Godzilla franchise, in my opinion. Literally all three of the new Titans Awakenings, Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidorah, are all fantastic. I'd say either Rodan or Mothra are probably the best one of the three, though, because both of those sequences are just absolutely peak. The Thermo scene is absolutely awesome, and so is the bowing to Godzilla scene. The use and implementation of the monsters into the story is also just so much better here. Like I said, they have so much more personality and aura to them, and they get a lot more time in the plot to shine. Yeah, Godzilla's screen time really isn't all that much more compared to 2014, but you feel it far more when he's on screen. The CGI in this film is like 95% perfect. There's like a couple bad shots, mainly that one where Ghidorah's standing over Maddie. But other than that, I think the movie looks pretty much on par with 2014 and Kong Skull Island. Just like I said, remove those filters, man. This movie also has one of the best interpretations of Ghidorah, in my opinion. I'm not gonna lie, at first I really wasn't a fan of the design. I'm one of the guys that I like my Ghidorahs to have a beard and the like moon crescent on the head. So, you know, for him to be more Heisei inspired, kind of, you know, just like a regular golden dragon, really kind of wasn't my thing at first, but you know, it's really grown on me over the years. And like I said, the personalities with the three heads, just whoever thought of that, I love you. That's all I got. My apologies for the very random, very abrupt interjection in the middle of the video in the positives segment of the review. Originally, I had all four of these videos planned to be just me by myself talking about all these movies, and you know, I was fine with that. Well, my good buddy Dagon, who I make music with, who I am also making a Godzilla related song coming out this coming week with, stay tuned for that. But he told me he would like to feature in a segment on the King of the Monsters video and like to talk about the movie because he is very passionate about this movie, which rightfully so. It's a really good movie. Sorry to spoil my thoughts there in the final verdict, but I mean, you can kind of interpret it from the way I'm talking about the movie at this point. But enough of this interjection. I'm going to let him take it away for the next 6-ish minutes. Brother, tell us your thoughts on Ghidorah and this wonderful movie.
Hey, what's up? Dagon here, and King of the Monsters was one of my favorite, if not my favorite entries within the MonsterVerse. The anticipation of not only just seeing Godzilla, but that Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra was everything I wanted growing up off the Toho films, getting a big budget Hollywood adaptation of this. Even though Godzilla, however, is my favorite of all time, I'm not here to talk about my GOAT. Let me cut it quick for you. In the director's cut, Michael Dougherty explained how he used to draw Godzilla inside all of his textbooks and stuff. It seemed that he went to a Catholic school. With this being said, ain't no way to better segue into what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. Ghidorah's religious imagery inside Godzilla King of the Monsters. With that being said, the motif and nickname of this three-headed dragon from space is the devil with three faces. If we look inside the book of Dante's Inferno, when we go to the last chapter, when Dante's finally at the bottom of the pit of hell, he finds Lucifer. And Lucifer dons three faces in a pit of ice. Now, if we remember, our good old boy Ghidorah, when we first see him, is trapped in ice. The way he's portrayed throughout this movie is truly has religious undertones to it. That's why he's propped up. That's why to this day, even though with the addition of Scar King, this tyrannical ape with a whole army with him. Within this army, a giant original titan that can freeze over the world. But to this day, we talk about Ghidorah because the presentation and power that this kaiju had within the film because of Michael Dougherty's influence of childhood really established that Ghidorah is not just a titan, but to the audience perceived as a devil. He already has the aesthetic, literally pulling from Dante's Inferno, the imagery of wings over the volcano as he spread out to let out his alpha call in front of the cross. And with that being said, the imagery is beautiful. A lot of religious imagery, something you can find out of a Renaissance painting, was within this movie. And that's what I truly appreciate, is it made the kaiju look like art. Not just giant action pieces, not just our giant lumbering ass come around to kick some ass, even though that's what we come here for. Look at the imagery, the beauty, the aesthetic of Michael Dougherty putting in so much love and effort. For another example, when he spreads out his wings, it is extremely reminiscent of this old painting depicting Lucifer/Satan as this dragon spreading out his rings. Another thing that could be said is Lucifer is always depicted as glowing, golden. What is the color of Ghidorah? He is the golden demise. The imagery he put into it, and tying back to his childhood, not only just drawing Godzilla within these textbooks, but pulling from what he learned to give us this film that was nothing but a love letter to the Godzilla fans. You just sit there and really, truly appreciate it. It's beautiful. And let's talk about Godzilla himself. Our hero, our main man, finally, is depicted as this knight. This is the only time in the MonsterVerse where Godzilla truly feels like a hero. Because he's not just destroying shit, he finally has competition on his level. Until we get that in GXK through Shimo. This is the only time we truly see our Godzilla in competition with something that is above him. We can say the Mutos jumped his ass. Homie got out of like a million-year nap and got jumped by a pair of husband and wife. I'd be probably pressed too. We had one of the best emotional movies so far for the kaiju within King of the Monsters. They're the ones who told the story. The human aspect could have been done better. They tried to make the mom relatable. But you can't be relatable when you kill millions of people because you're grieving your son by unleashing godly creatures on the earth. That's like me being like, I am upset my ex broke up with me. I'm finna go shoot up the mall with tigers. But the moral of the story is for real, Godzilla's whole personality throughout the MonsterVerse, even though starting off as like this protector of balance and all that horse shit, then he's a hater. Like, bro, 2014 is really just like, the woke up to make sure he could block. The whole reason he beefing with Kong is because, like, Kong don't even know Godzilla exists. And Godzilla has an ancient feud with his species. So it's really just Godzilla being like, Kong, yeah, I don't really have a liking to those kind. Yeah, I gotta get this motherfucker off the map. Yeah, I gotta execute his ass forever, daring to get off his island. And Kong just chilling. Kong is literally just vibing. But that's why the rivalry between Godzilla and Ghidorah is so good and special. It's two motherfuckers who hate each other equally. Literally, these two motherfuckers, as grand as they're trying to make it seem, these battles between gods, it's just two giant animals having a measuring contest. And it's the funniest shit ever. Mothra was cool. She was beautiful. I don't really have a lot to say about Mothra. I'm not the biggest Mothra fan, but I get why she has the appeal. But Rodan, $5 for that go bad. That was cool. He did nothing but scream and fight, and I can get behind that. His personality was just, hey, I might not win, but Ese, I'm going to hit him. I'm going to scrap with him. And if I lose, him. How can you not respect it? I fuck with Rodan. Rodan was cool. His design was just, it was cool as hell. And overall, this was like, to this day, I always catch myself with a blunt in my hand, a little bit of shots poured up, always going back to this movie and having the most fun by myself. It's the one dearest to your heart if you're a true Godzilla kaiju fan and everything like that. But with that being said, let's get it back to spaecii.
Huge shout out to Dagon for appearing in this video. I feel like it made the review segment 10 times better. This definitely will be the last time that we make videos or music together. So keep your eye out on that. He will more than likely be in my Godzilla Kong the New Empire review. Once again, thank you, Dagon, for appearing in the video, and we are now back to my thoughts on the movie. And the human story, I'm not gonna lie, is actually low-key okay. I'm not gonna lie, even with some of the problems it has, it is overall, I'm gonna say it right now, it's better than Godzilla 2014. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, some of the writing is stupid, but so was Godzilla 2014. I'm sorry, I'm tired of pretending like Godzilla 2014 did the humans perfect and that King of the Monsters just did them so abysmal. They both did them really about the same in my opinion. I just prefer King of the Monsters more. Alright, enough glazing. Let's rate it. So, I want to preface this rating. For a while, this was my bottom of the MonsterVerse. This was my least favorite MonsterVerse project. I went through a period where I absolutely despised this movie. It was a combination of factors. Like I said, some of the corny lines in this movie really got amplified on the internet, and, you know, it really just painted this kind of picture of the fans of this film. And like I said, I took other people's perspectives into account, and I rewatched 2014 and, like I said, started to gain appreciation for that movie. And so, you know, for a while I despised King of the Monsters, but now as an adult and have rewatched it before Godzilla x Kong, I'm sorry, y'all gaslit me and I'm never going to forgive you for it. I am going to give Godzilla King of the Monsters an 8.5 out of 10. It was originally an 8, but I am arbitrarily adding an extra half to piss people off. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, this movie's flawed. It's not perfect. It is far from the best Godzilla movie. But I have it on Steelbook for a reason. It is a badass movie. It's so much fun. And I'm tired of pretending like it's not. I'm like, I know I'm getting real here, but like, literally, I've gaslit myself into years into thinking this movie sucks. And that is just not the case, man. I'm sorry, it's just not. Well, yeah, that pretty much concludes our coverage of Godzilla King of the Monsters. Only one more left till Godzilla Kong the New Empire. Dude, the movie's like gonna be out soon. It's crazy. As always, if you enjoyed, leave a like on the video and comment your favorite moment of Godzilla King of the Monsters. What you thought of it. Did you love it? Did you despise it like I did for a few years? Have you also been gaslit into thinking it sucks by people on the internet? I'm never gonna let that go. Like, I'm actually mad about that. And obviously, let me know your experience with Godzilla King of the Monsters, either leading up to the film, during the film, or, you know, afterwards when it been out for a while. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Those will be up on the screen respectively. Sub to the main channel if you want to hear some music. I actually have a song coming out for Godzilla Kong the New Empire not too long from now. And if you want to see more kaiju content like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. And as always, I'm going to suggest you follow my Instagram because the notification bell almost never works. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up for Godzilla King of the Monsters. I hope to see y'all again next video for the final installment in MonsterVerse Madness, at least for the main 4 movies, where we will be talking about the penultimate film in the MonsterVerse, at least, you know, for the first phase. But Godzilla vs. Kong, another movie that I'm so glad I have this scheduled for. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you on the next one. Peace.